Put this on you. I
Hello,
can't get enough of
everybody. Yeah, I really
awesome.
love it. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Comics Della Morte. I am Ronnie Gunter, Crimson Owl Comics, and my co-host, as always, Jason Alexander, Frogbreaker Studios, and this
What's
is
up?
episode
What's up? What's
39
up?
of Vengeful Heart. My
Yo, we
upcoming,
got people in the
yeah,
chat already. We got
already? Awesome.
yeah, we got Gary, we got Van, we got Rude Eats. What's going on, y'all? What y'all
What's
doing
up,
here so
everyone?
early? You didn't even got started yet.
I'm glad everyone came by, and yeah, it's awesome. Like I said, episode 39 of Vengeful Heart. I mean, in a couple of days, my web comic, my web horror comic is going to be coming out. And, just talking to Jason more about it, I'm gonna have like a episode with like probably 3 to 4 pages long. And then at the end of all the episodes, then I'm gonna take that issue one and then put it and have basically sell it as a physical comic.
Yep. That's
So,
awesome. I can't
yeah.
wait. I can't wait to know more about it. So that's pretty much what we're doing today, guys. Like
Mhm.
we are celebrating the pilot of Comics de la Muerte. Pilot, not in the sense of flying in it, like not in the sense of like the first episode of a TV show, but kinda. But also pilot, not in the sense of flying an airplane, but also kinda.
Yeah.
So Ronnie is releasing his book on Tapas, and
Yeah.
I cannot wait to read it, guys. Like I've been fortunate enough to watch Ronnie like start it
Mhm.
and like get it right and to get the colors how he wanted them in. Like, and I get to, he's like asking me questions about
And
what he's
even
doing.
getting the horror right, like making sure that this horror is
Yeah,
like
well, you nailed
stunning
that. Like,
and
I love it.
yeah.
It's just it works so well. Like, I mean, you wrote it and you drew it, but your art style complements the feel of this story so well.
Yeah.
So, do you have any pictures or anything to show of it?
Well, I don't want to show too much because then it'll ruin the comic. But
Oh, that's true. That's true. I get it.
but for anyone to know how I pretty much work, like I'll write down a long page of how I want the comic to pretty much start and finish, and then write out like the key points of like the graphic horror there. But pretty much with this comic so far, what I've done is that I pretty much did like the Marvel way, where I took the one page, I'm like, okay, this is how I want it to start. This is how I want the next panel to go. This is how I want the next panel to go. So I drew them all that way, and then I added in the dialogue because I kind of had an idea of how I wanted the dialogue to complement the
Right.
story visually.
But you
And
wanted
some
to make sure it
yeah,
was more
and
important when you were writing it to nail down the visuals because you
mhm.
you were pretty confident that you knew where you wanted it to go script
Yeah.
wise.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because as a writer and an artist, sometimes, well, for anyone in general, it's like trying to have like panel one have the beginning of the story, and then panel two showing the transition from what that person is doing from here to there, but not cutting out so much between those two panels. It was
Sure.
like, okay, how did that person end up there? And
Yeah.
having like as an artist to just making sure that you just don't have like a bunch of talking heads, but you focus on different parts of like a close-up shot of a person's face here, a faraway shot where you see them standing by a window with a chair, and just different things to really focus on telling the story. Even like showing a person hand opening up a doorknob, anything like that, but
Yeah.
like make it like exciting and suspenseful and just cool in a lot of ways, especially with
Yeah.
like the horror parts where I have like a lot of the gray tones and the black, but then I put like colors in there, but it's not like bright colors. It's kind of like
Yep.
almost like colors that are dull are saturated in a way where like if you have the green, it's not like a bright green. It's almost like a puke green or like almost
Yep.
like a baby shit green, you know? So
Right.
yeah, but yeah,
When I started doing
thank you, Van.
comics, I mean, and I say when I started doing comics, like I've been doing them forever, but it's only
Yeah.
really been, a couple of years.
Mhm.
But I used to love watching those Stan Lee videos where he'd have different artists on. I can't remember the name of that show, but he had all these different comic book artists at the time that were like super hot
Mhm.
in Marvel.
Yeah.
And I remember one of the Todd McFarlane episodes, he complimented Todd McFarlane on how
Mhm.
he made like these mundane panels interesting and how he could, manipulate the reader's eyes with those panels. And something you said, the reason I'm talking about this is something you said reminded me of Todd McFarlane saying,
Mhm.
if you can make the coffee mug interesting,
Yeah.
making the laser gun fight interesting is going to
Mhm.
be that much easier.
Oh yeah,
Because
for sure.
we can nail that in a comic book all day long.
Mhm.
But a lot of like those McFarlane tools that fascinated me so much as a younger comic reader, um, are they work better on a multi-panel page. Working in a webcomic format, like, do you find it? Because I know you do. You've always done more of a traditional style. I mean, I know you did the interactive comic as well,
Yeah.
but
Mhm.
what do you get? Do you find it more challenging to do it in the webcomic format? Do you enjoy one more than the other now that you've like started one and got like a story out?
Well, the thing is definitely since I know I'm going to publish the book physically too,
Yep.
I make sure that when I do the artwork for the story, the layout is looking like an actual comic book page, where you have like the two panels depending on how big the
Yep.
artwork is. And then after, because I think I work by like a 23. So the way it's out, it's pretty much like the size of a piece of paper that you would see like the traditional comic book
Sure.
pages are. So it's pretty
Yep.
much 23 by something I can't remember, but it's very big. So then after I wrote the whole page, I get the dialogue out. Then I basically chop up each panel, and then I put it on its individual thing, so that
Nice.
because it has to be side scrolled. So it's like, okay, take this uh chop pretty much clip it and then put it on its own thing, so that
Yep.
way it's almost like its own page.
Yep.
So I mean, that could be tedious, but like if people who, like I said, wants to make sure that, hey, after I get done with my first issue or my first series, I want to take it and put it into a actual physical book. You
For
got to
sure.
you got to make sure the resolution is good, and you're working on a bigger canvas,
Right.
because if not, if you try to print that stuff out, it's going to look very pixelated and very small.
Right. And
You know.
it's like I'm sure it's more work for you now to do it that way, but you're ready. Like as
Mhm.
soon as people like want those physical books, you don't have to say, "Stay tuned for 6 months and I'll get them all out." Like
Yeah.
you got a working design so that you
Mhm.
can fulfill that while it's hot. While the demand for it is hot. So
Yeah.
good on you. Like I think you
Yeah,
got the right
because
idea. Like
when you think about it, like the episode coming out is about 15 panels,
yep.
which I'm like, okay, that's a pretty good decent read. When you really look at it, the 15 panels could be like only 3 to 4 pages, but that's good enough. When people start reading the dialogue and looking at the artwork, they
Well,
could
that's
spend
just
like
it. Yeah.
a couple minutes just admiring the work,
There you go. That's it. Y'all heard him. You gonna love the way it looks, and you gonna like the story. Like that's
Yeah.
the bottom line because Crimson Owl says so. So
Yeah.
get ready.
But
Like I love that. Like
I'll share one of the panels. I mean, this I
yes,
definitely showed before, so let me see. Can you guys see that?
Oh, it's good. I love it.
But yeah, just really fun, like working on the
It's like
sound
the
effects.
Rose Gallery.
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
love it.
But yeah, it's just been really fun, like I said, to work with like the colors because I wanted to still have like the gray and black tones with traditional horror comics, but I kind of wanted to have like almost color in there too, kind of like how you seen Sin City do, or how like you've seen a lot of Hellboy comics where like Hellboy is red, but it's not like a bright red. So it's been really
Yeah.
fun working with colors and try to get them dark and gritty. And like I said, you got this fat humanoid worm and this you know sexualized like fly in a way where you see like
Yep.
the upper woman's torso. So yeah, it's just been really fun to really focus on creating horror and just man, I can't say enough. I love it.
So
Can't wait for to release it.
so I know this fly lady kind
Hmm.
of is a character. And so what about the pimple guy? Is he a character? Is he just kind of like a
Well,
ancillary monster?
pretty much the pimplish guy and the
Yep.
fly woman. The pimplish guy is almost if you don't see it there, but later on in the series, you're gonna find out the pimplish guy has almost like his backside is almost like Jabba the Hutt. So he's it's kind of indicating that the demonic world is able to take insects like the pimplish guy. He's almost like a worm, so he's pinkish. So it's basically like in the demonic world, they're able to take simple insects like a worm or a fly and make them to something horrifying. So that'd be fun to play around with
Yep.
later on in the series. Is like, okay, what if this person took like a cat or a dog? What would they look like? And let's face it, sometimes in the demonic world or in horror comics, they like to make things like grotesque, or like with the female fly, you have the slim waist with the breasts of the woman, but you still see like the horror and grossness
Oh
of
yeah.
the stuff. So
Yeah. Like I wasn't checking her out. That's for sure. Yeah. But
right.
no, I'm so excited to see how it all melds together. So what about the zombie? Is that the dad?
That is the father. Yes.
Yeah, okay. I thought so. I didn't want to
Yeah.
spoil too much. I didn't think that question would. I
Mhm.
was trying to figure out how to phrase it, but I think that was the most direct way that I could just get it and
Yeah.
just shut up. So
Yeah.
I'm good. I'm good now. I just wanted to know who all the characters were. But no,
And
Ronnie, like, this is so awesome,
in the
man.
front cover, I love the front cover. I mean, I know I told you and Gary that I was like,
Yep.
"Oh man, I got to work on a front cover," because unlike uh webtoons, if I'm not mistaken, they only want a thumbnail, but with
Yep.
Tapas, they're like, instead of just a thumbnail, we want you to have like this blown out comic cover. I'm
They
like,
want you to treat it like a book.
yeah. Yeah, but the
That's
cool
cool.
thing is too, also they asked, well, you could besides the comic cover and the thumbnail, we'll give you a chance to create a banner for your website.
Yep.
So I'm working on that. And then they're like, okay, and you should have a customized ad, so that way we could promote it on the website. So I'm working on that, all that stuff too. But definitely,
That's cool.
definitely the first episode is going to be released, if not by this weekend, early as Monday, because like I
Oh, I
told
can't
Jason
wait.
too, that I'm not the greatest grammarly person, so I have like an editor that pretty much is just correcting my stuff to make sure the spelling's right and everything. But
Yep.
yeah, it's
Yep.
just been really fun, and man, just can't talk more
I'm
about it.
I'm pretty pumped. Like it's I don't know, man. It's like the whole indie comics world is just pretty
Mhm.
cool because you get to know, like, we've been friends as long as I've been, literally, as long as I've been doing comics, you and I have been friends.
Yeah.
So it's like now, not only to watch you, like, through your different stories that you've told over the past couple of years, and to then spend the last year, like, picking your brain about
Mhm.
comics. And, we're getting to see, like, we've become a pretty decent duo on reviewing comics over
Oh
the
yeah, for
past
sure.
year now. And so now we get to see
Mhm.
you releasing a comic. I like, in a good way, I feel like
Mhm.
the pressure is on now. Like, so I'm excited. Like,
Yeah,
this is good. So I
yeah.
can't wait to, like, I'm living through you, Ronnie. Like, I'm very, very happy for you. Like, I'm always happy. Like, if I'm at work and you send me a
Mhm.
picture of something you're working on, it makes the day go a little bit smoother because I'm like, okay, no, like, this is also these are also my
Yeah.
coworkers, and this is my fun
Mhm.
job. Look at that cover, guys. That's so awesome. I love the blue in the background. Like, I think that makes the whole page pop.
Yeah, for
It's
sure.
just such a nice cover.
And
And it's such an eye-catching name. Like, you gotta want to know where this title comes from because it's so old school. Like, this is like
mhm.
one of those old school, like, you can smell the
Yeah.
paperback out of a title like A Vengeful Heart. So
Mhm.
I'm gassed, man. I'm pretty pumped.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for this critter thing to load up a bit. But I mean, if you kind of look of it close enough, it does have a starry background to it
Yep.
because the story you're gonna find out has to do with like the like space. Well, pretty much something that comes along. You're gonna well, pretty much I could talk about it a little because it is gonna be part of the plot summits. It has to be a Haley Comet is involved. So you're gonna see a part in there where you see like the stars at night, and you're gonna see like a detailed Haley's Comet be shoot by in the sky as well. So yeah,
Mm,
yeah, I'll send you
that's
that. I'll send you more of that later.
awesome. Well, I mean, I'm sure you know, but
Mhm.
they've always said that comets have like been harbingers of bad news coming. So
Yeah.
looks like this story continues that whole thing. So,
Mhm.
oh man, hey, sounds like you got a fan.
Yeah.
Kamikaze is into the cover. I love
That's
it.
funny.
But no, so how did you settle on, like, using, like, you have so many characters. Like, how did you settle on this? Like, this is what the cover should look like.
Well, pretty much the main character is this guy right here. I mean, his full name is James Luther Collins. So
Yep.
he's how the way you say it he's half human and half fallen angel. So he's a
Yep.
Nephilim in a sense. But
Yep.
this man, as the way I'm gonna put in the plot, he was born he was born from Lucifer, his father, but he wanted to have a normal life. But then, of course, his father didn't want that for him and screwed his life over for the worse. And that's why it's called a vengeful heart because he wants revenge on his father.
That's, oh, I can't wait. I can't wait. Y'all, like, keep your eyes on Tapas because tomorrow's Friday. Like, the
Mm-hmm.
weekend is here. So you should want to know early before finding
Yeah.
out too late.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm I'm proud of you, Ronnie. Like,
Thank you.
it's like you're the elder statesman, but I'm still proud of you, man. Like, this is gonna be
Mm-hmm.
pretty cool. So, man,
Yeah.
like,
And
we got a pretty cool little universe with these comics, man.
yeah.
It's so cool to be able to know people who make dope art and tell great stories.
And I could tell you too that it's been fun to work on this as well because it's one of those things sometimes as an artist, as a writer, you want things to happen like in places that you grew up with because it
Yep.
makes things more personal, kind of like how Gary with his book,
Yep.
you know, he put stuff in there that he could relate to. So there's a part in there where basically uh well, make sure my wife's not hearing because my wife's afraid of these places, but it takes place in Merrimack Caverns. And Merrimack Caverns is basically a famous place my brother and Kamikaze would know because we're all from St. Louis. It's basically caves, and it was really nice because I have been in Merrimack Caverns before, and it's very popular, and a lot of people don't know. Like, there's history around those caves too, where Jesse James actually hid in that place, and there's rumors that there is some of it, some money that he stored away in those caves somewhere. So it's just really cool to have like that history and to mix some of that history with fiction, you know, because
Yeah.
because Missouri, what people don't know, is also called like the cave state because we have over 6,000 caves in Missouri.
Wow. No kidding. 6,000. I didn't think
Yeah.
Missouri was that big of a state, like
Mhm.
to have 6,000 caves. That's pretty wild.
Yeah.
It goes like, just to kind of piggyback off your point,
Mhm.
Ronnie, like it goes back to that whole thing that like I try to remember when I'm writing is relatability. And
Yeah.
if your story starts slow, but you have a
Thank you,
few
Gary. I appreciate it.
landmarks or a few things that will
Mhm.
keep people's eyes on the page, then
Yeah.
you can walk them through the story. Like
Mhm.
you make the world building more interesting if you have something that people can identify with, and
Yeah.
that's always a challenge, especially in horror, because
Mhm.
these things don't exist. These things don't exist out in the open. So how do you
Yeah.
like you got
Mhm.
to root people into something that to like really get these stories to take off. It was something that Gary did awesome. It was something that you've done, like that I've taken a lot of cues from you and you've done awesome. It's something that I feel like that I do, early on, I got a grasp on saying what's
Mhm.
going to make people the most interested in my story. And
Yeah.
like to be able to like work and sit under you guys' learning trees at times, man. Like it's confirmation of no, these stories that I enjoy are instantly relatable. Um, Scott Serkland, Young and the Dead.
Mhm.
I love that story because I'm I'm an 80s fiend. Like I'm an 80s mall fiend. Like
Me and you both.
everything about the mall in the 80s is like awesome to me. And
Mhm.
wow, nice. So oh, Gary, you made me lose my thought. um, but no, just to be able to like lock somebody into a location or even lock them into an idea or lock them, you
Mhm.
got a horror story about Godzilla, but it starts off with a man and a woman arguing in their apartment. Well, a lot of us have been there. A lot of us have
Yeah.
argued with a partner. So it doesn't really matter that the monster is outside right now because now that like these are people
Mhm.
that you can relate to. So now you can invest in what they're about to go through next. A lot of, and not to get too much into your story, but a lot of what you shared with me has a lot of familial ties. You know what I mean? Like a lot of
Mhm.
your stories told through like a family, and we all have families. Some of them great, some of them not so great.
Yeah.
But it's common ground. Like you started somewhere where we can all start and follow your story through. So,
Mhm.
um, is this Merrimack Caverns? Like this is the real Merrimack
Yeah, that is
Caverns?
Merrimack. That's Merrimack Caverns, and you see the limestone and how beautiful it is. And this isn't Merrimack Caverns, but there. Let me bring up another picture because there's another cave system in Missouri. It's called Fantastic Caverns, and unlike Merrimack Caverns, this one is located in Springfield. I used to live there too, and you
Hey,
could literally
Kamikaze,
drive
I got I got one of those too.
yeah. But with Fantastic Caverns, you could drive a Jeep with a wagon in it, and it takes like I think almost 2 hours to drive through because you're going there and back. So let me bring
So
that one up.
you drive through the caverns?
Yeah, not the Merrimack Caverns. You could walk through there, but Fantastic Caverns, they're so big you could drive a vehicle through it.
You don't worry
And
about cave-ins? Like this is not
oh
an
man,
issue.
I love caves.
I'd like to try it. I don't know if I want to drive through one. Like,
See,
those. Yeah, you better put a cab over that wagon in the back. You put me back there. Like,
yeah.
give me a hard
But,
hat or something.
but
Grannies.
but it's one of those things as a writer, kind of like with Stephen King. He writes horror stories, but he makes the area almost, well, it's fictional areas, but a lot of the areas that he gets inspiration from is from places he grew up around.
I tell you what, like growing up in North Carolina and then moving to Maine,
Mhm.
man, I've been in 71 Dairy Maine since I've been up here. Like, it's super relatable. Like, even like, oh, Gary's got a question.
Oh,
Um,
what's up? What's the question, Gary? I'll let you go first.
okay, so the first part of the question of my primary motivation to create and tell stories um, is I the second part answers the part of the first part,
Mhm.
but my primary motivation is to tell stories. Like,
Mhm.
it started out somewhere, but now, like, even like going through the minis, I
Yeah.
love, I love telling stories, and mm, the faster I can tell a story, the better. And that doesn't necessarily mean that I want them all short, but
Mhm.
I just like to tell them. Now, why I do what I do, you can never flat me, Gary. um, but why I do what I do is
Mhm.
primarily to expose cults. And the first thing is, I was raised in a cult, and I now realize the responsibility of the people who want to not really ever leave. Because
Mhm.
when you talk about it as much as I do, you never really leave. But it's very healing for me. And if it's healing for me, if it's if it touches one other person, then I have to do it. Especially coming through what we've come through as ex Jehovah's Witnesses, and what Jehovah's Witnesses are going through, and not
Mhm.
even really knowing it. And I only speak about it by name because I lived it. I lived it for 30 plus years. So I can, like, I'm comfortable to talk about it. But I do what I do because we have a responsibility. Those of us who can make people feel should make people feel, because nobody really feels anymore. People just want to react. So that's that's my answer. What do you got, Ronnie?
For me, I'll pretty much talk about with me as a kid growing up. I was very quiet, and I was one of those kids that I didn't talk until I was like probably around 4 or 5. And because of that, I had a speech impediment and I was in special ed and stuff like that. But the one
Yeah,
thing I always did love doing was drawing. And that pretty much built my confidence, because people are like, even as a kid, I was drawing things that people are like, oh wow, that's really good character from Beauty and the Beast or Lion King, stuff like that. And then
yeah,
later on, I saw my sister do a play and I'm like, oh man, I love acting. Then singing came along with music and dancing and singing on stage. And for my brother and Kamikaze, we had our own wrestling thing called Rough House Wrestling, where we would go to each other's houses and go in the basement and wrestle. And the thing is, out of all that, why I love creating and tell stories, because I love entertaining people. Like when I wrestled with my brother and him, my Mike, I would sit down and come up with like my own wrestling move, have the name, have my name, have the whole backstory. So whatever I did at even with writing as an actor with my church that I went to in college, I actually wrote a couple short plays for me and a couple of people to act out. So as a creator, I just love entertaining, because it's one of those things that instead of people focusing on, my speech pediment or the negative things that I don't like about myself. It's just great to see people smile, laugh, and be like a shock value from the things that I created. Like, I love entertaining people. I do.
Yeah.
I love making people happy. And it's like, even when, my niece here, through my sister-in-law, or my siblings, children up north, or even my best friends that I have from college, it's like when I see a little kid, I act like a clown, and all I want to do is make that little kid laugh, because I just love entertaining people. I do. I
Yeah.
can't. And
Yeah.
and Mike and Rick probably know enough, but yeah, I now we're old and must. Yeah, but yeah, that's so pretty much the motivation to create, tell, and stories, because it's what I love to do. It doesn't matter if I'm able to quit my day job and make a living off of it. It's
Yeah.
it's what I want to do. It's
Yeah.
what I want to it's what I want to be known by.
It's worth working two jobs.
Mhm.
Like comics are
Yeah.
easily worth, putting the work in after hours, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah.
I comics are kind of cool, and
Mhm.
because we get it, and this is kind of what you were saying too. We get secret identities. Like we make comic books, even if we're not writing a superhero comic,
Yeah.
because we get to exist in this world where we don't stammer or we don't have
Mhm.
trouble making eye contact with people. And social anxiety doesn't really matter
Mhm.
when you're telling a story. And
Yeah.
like horror, it doesn't matter what you do to people.
Mhm.
And I don't want to do anything bad to people, but you if you do it right, you can grab people. And it's I've got Midsummer on my mind. Like this is
Yeah.
something that we're going to have to talk about soon. Gary Hodges, I'm talking to you as
And I
well.
got to get back
Like
to this too. So far, I like this. It's one of
you've enjoyed
Stevenson's
that?
newer books. Yeah.
Yeah. I've seen it. I gotta pick it
Yeah.
up. But we've man, I love comic books.
Yeah, and that's the
It's
thing. What I love comic books, as a person who wanted to like, who did musicals and did short plays. What I love about comics is kind of like what people do in movies. If you're a storyboard artist, you're literally drawing out what the movie's going to look like. As a comic book artist, you're able to take dialogue like Stephen King, and then take visual images like you would in a movie, and find a way to make them not clash against each other, but become a beautiful marriage that deserves to be together.
yeah. Writing perfect. Then let me know when you're ready to talk about it, Gary. 'Cause you've already seen Midsummer, haven't you, Ronnie?
Well, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, we should. I'm gonna watch it again. Like we should
Mhm.
brush up. I just watched it a couple nights ago, but boy, if y'all thought that my Tony Stark theory was wild, wait till I start talking about Midsummer.
Mhm.
But no, Ari Aster pretty much he nailed it. Like there's really not a lot of theories about that movie more than just marveling at it for not feeling like a 2.5 hour movie. But
Oh, before
no,
I forget, back to the cavern. So yeah, it's really cool to be in those caves, because when you're in a cave, it is really like not cold, but it's like breezy in there. Of course,
sure,
some places you can't go because of the back guano might make you sick, or some places are closed off because if you try to crawl through that area, you might get stuck, and you have to have someone dig you out, or you're gonna die. But just seeing the beautiful limestone in a cave, and just seeing that wonders, it was really fun trying to capture just not my imagination, but like remembering and putting that in a visual image for the comic.
sure. It's just crazy like that places like that exist
Hmm.
and they are so old.
Yeah.
And there has to be, like, if you're a person who believes in energy, you
Mhm.
got to believe that there's some pretty serious energy, good, bad, and indifferent in places like
Yeah,
that because they've
like
seen it all, you know?
like I wish I remember the name of this place, but I when I was in Sedalia, Missouri, where I went to college to State Fair University, a lot of the small town is basically one of those small country towns, and the
Yeah,
only thing that's really bringing money to it is like the college. So they have like this old mansion and this old hospital that they people still go to, but it was this rich guy who became a doctor, and he has like this big giant house that you could walk through because it's a museum at this point. And
yeah,
instead of using air conditioning, he literally built his house on top of an entrance to a cave. So he used the natural like cooling system of the cave to like pretty much make
man.
the house cold.
Imagine if we all did stuff like that, like
Yeah.
the advancements like that. That to me that's next level shit. Like
Mhm.
that seems more advanced than building a central air conditioning unit because it was effective. Like for him to have money and to build it and it worked,
Mhm. And
that's that's
it
a
was
pretty
just
cool
it was
thing.
just it was just cool because, like, the areas, of course, were graded off, and the holes were so small, nothing like a bat could fly through,
Yeah,
but it was just great to, like, think about it. You're using, like, the cave's actual natural air system to cool your house down during the summertime.
that's such an awesome
Mhm.
idea.
Yeah.
'Cause I don't like the heat no way. Like so,
And
if
and
somebody
like
was
I
like,
said,
"Hey,
it's just fun for history, like with the Jesse James, one of the most notorious outlaws, to like be in a cave and to have some of the money somewhere in there. So it's
yeah,
just yeah, it's just fun creating. Because even with Wes Craven, when he had the idea of Freddy Krueger, he heard stories about people dying in their sleeps. So he's like, "Hey, let me put more on that." So yeah, it's like most horror writers, at least for my case, from what I've read, and even for me, I'm adding, like I said, a lot of like actual historic facts with fiction. Just like with
yeah,
the Halley's Comet that you're going to see in there, to some people, Halley's Comet is a sign of, a good omen, or it could be a sign of bad omen. So
yeah,
it's just fun to like really play with that in this issue and the upcoming stories. So yeah.
yeah." No, I'm pretty pumped. Like that's a cool. Your the Haley's comic could almost play as like your narrator through your
Hmm.
story, which is
Yeah.
a really cool idea.
Hmm.
So I can't wait to see where you go with this, Ronnie. Like I'm glad that it finally is about to exist and get the shine that it deserves
Yeah.
because from the little bit that I've seen of it, because y'all, Ronnie don't share a lot.
I
You don't
share.
share a lot.
I
You
share, but I
share,
don't share a
but
lot. Especially
I
like
have to be excited about the story because I don't know enough about the story yet, and so
it's one
I'm
of those
really
things
excited about
I'll share the artwork and share
it.
like
Yep,
the bits of the monsters, but like
yep,
when it comes to my like actual dialogue,
yeah. You
no,
got to
I
come to the
don't.
show. Yeah, I
It's like
like it.
it's one of those things like when I write dialogue, when I have like the narrator talking and stuff like that, I like to
Hmm.
use metaphors. I don't like to just have like plain stuff, but yeah, I love
Yep,
playing with metaphors, you know.
I'm pumped, man. I think it's gonna be awesome.
Mhm.
Well,
Well, does anybody else have any questions? We've been going on for 40 minutes. Didn't think we were going to
yeah,
last this long, but man,
yeah, Gary, that was a good question. That was
for
fun.
sure, Gary.
Thank you, man. Like, I guess I should
Oh yeah,
let
talk about
me
the minis.
let me show the mini site real quick.
Mhm.
I gotta put it on screen share. I'm getting better about remembering to hit this screen share button. But y'all, for real though, check out minicomicbundles.com.
Oh, we'll get to your question in a bit, Van.
This is 3 stories. Oh, Van's got a question. All right.
Yeah.
We got 3 stories this month. We got the message, which is think the Saw, not the Saw, think Saw, but also think returning your grocery carts.
Mhm.
Aaron's artwork, per usual, I feel like shines when he's like into to telling his horror, like because he's a fantastic artist. Like visually, you won't believe the size of these comics. Like check them out. Like this is, I'll show you one in a minute in real size. But Home Run starts the introduction to this world outside of a
That's just a
town.
nice cityscape. That's beautiful.
So that's what's crazy about this is like this is a mini comic that's told on this street here, like this street that you see on this picture. But this city that's around it is part of a 3-part story coming up called Gilead City. Gilead City is the first published story that I've written that starts to touch on that cult subject like overtly. It's this city is kind of Total Recall meets the horror aspects of the Terminator, and it like magnifies the theory of there being no such thing as a free puppy. Because if you get like the premise of this ruling elite that runs Gilead City has keys over life and death for everybody. And so you can live forever or you cannot. But when you can live forever, the people who set that up get bored. So they've decided to make this wild game show. And that's what this story is about. Yeah, and I think that it's a challenge to write this many stories like in succession and to release 3 a month that are all not really tied to any of the other 2 books that you get with them. And it's hard. It's a challenge to write the real Total Recall Kamikaze, not Colin Farrell's Recall, like the real Recall. Hourglass, guys, this is also a mini comic cover. And this is a lot of detail. Like you don't really get this much detail in a comic page in black and white. Not to mention a mini comic. Like look at these speed lines coming off that fist. Like, and this story is 6 months long. Like this is the end of it. But it's so good, guys. Like I just hope you guys get it. You can actually read an issue of Hourglass on the site. This is a complete issue. We got Hourglass number 3, which obviously sits right in the middle, but it's a good spot for the stories. Oh, we're having a little bit of technical difficulties there, but you get Hourglass, you get the Drive-In, you get Green Roses. All these stories are available to read in their entirety on minicomicbundles.com. And you can also visit the shop where you can choose individual bundles from our back catalog, or you can sign up for the entire year. You get webcomics. You also get Aaron's Inktober book. You get all 12 months of the minis. And like I said, we got 2 big time webcomics coming. So $60 for the entire year or $5 a month. You can set it up on recurring payments. That way you never miss an issue. They are limited to 250. So once those come and are gone, the minis are done. So pick yours up now, minicomicbundles.com. And hold on, I'm coming back now, y'all. Yeah, I'm back. So this is like the actual size of the mini comics. Not very big, but you're hard pressed to find a better told stories than what me and Aaron have done so far. So minicomicbundles.com, pick them up. Find me on Instagram. I'll talk about them there too. But yeah, that's about it. What questions did we get?
All right, so we'll go with in order with Van. All right. Saying, what are you most excited about with the debut of the projects right around the corner? Mine's is just pretty much showing people that, you know, I wrote kids stories, I wrote Christmas books, but I love horror, and it's just great to finally show people that, hey, I could write a good horror project and not just talk about reviewing, but just, in general, I want to scare people, and I want people to be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe he went there.
Right.
you know?
That's cool. Yep. Yeah. So I'm working on a lot of little stuff just so I
Mhm.
can keep my productivity up. But Ransom Notes is what it's why I wanted to write
Mhm.
comics. And now I'm starting to see it come to fruition. Like it has a final shape now.
Mhm.
I'm working out the character designs. Scripting is like in its next stages of drafts.
Mhm.
So this is all going to be like the script will be completed relatively soon. I don't want to put a date on it, but it's coming. And I'll always talk about it because I just want people to understand that it's not a you might think that the subject matter might be something that you can't identify with,
Mhm.
but my challenge and my job is to bring that to a more relatable territory. And I feel like I did it, and I feel like that now, like when it started, I didn't really know much about horror comics or really horror in general. But
Mhm.
now that we've gotten to look through this year so far of horror comics, it's given me a few more tools to kind of like turn the heat up a little bit in spots and even cool it off in other spots, because what we talked about is things can become cliche if they're used too much.
Yeah, like we talked
And
about, like
yeah,
taking something, like making something suspenseful when something
yeah,
not's going to happen. Like if
right,
you want something to be suspenseful, you have to make the the end result dramatic
right.
and creepy as hell.
Yeah, and there was a couple of times where I had similar stories because a lot of these stories like started out as these little short stories,
Mhm.
but you start having to pick. It's like, okay, this story and this story feel the same. Which one do I like better? Or can I combine both of these stories,
Mhm.
make it a little bit longer, and cut out some of the fluff?
Yeah.
Like, and so I think that I felt like I needed to cook a little bit more
Mhm.
before I was really able to like get this story out the way that it was supposed to be. And now the fork comes out clean. I'm done. So now Ransom Notes has to exist. And
Mhm.
so that I'm excited about production of Ransom Notes. I'm excited to finish up the minis. It's always such a reward to get these
Mhm.
to get these when they come in every month. But yeah, I'm excited to make more comics, but Ransom Notes is going to be something special, and it will be a weight off of my shoulders.
Awesome. And now for Gary, my digitally it's going to be on Topis, and I'm going to have a video coming out soon. It's pretty much going to be like how like you saw at the beginning of our show. We have like clips, so I'm gonna like get a bunch of clips together that kind of like tells like a little preview of the story and post it here, so that way you have like a book trailer, and then you'll have the link to the actual website as well. So it's going to be
Yep.
on Topis, the Tapastic, or however you say it, and every like 3 weeks to a month, I'm trying to do it at least within 3 weeks. I'm going to have like another episode out, and with each episode is going to be at least 3 to 4 pages long, so that way by we're almost halfway through the year, so by December, besides my horror calendar, I, if not by the end of this year, definitely with the beginning of next year, you're going to be able to buy it in the actual print format.
I'm excited.
Because in the book, I want to have like, not just the comic itself, but I want to have like ads to promote Jason and Gary. You've been a friend to me and Jason. It's only right that I try to have an ad in there to promote your stuff too. because all of us indie creators, the number one thing is to help each other out and realize that we're all in here together, and it's not about like competition. At least it's not to me. So
Yeah,
yeah, just
that's just Tarani. No, I'm joking. But no, I feel like the more of us that can build a platform, the quicker we can get more people on our platform, we can build a bigger platform. And
oh yeah, for sure.
then it just won't matter. Like everybody can just tell dope stories. And there's nothing wrong with liking anybody's story, no matter what it's about. If you like it and nobody else does, that's fine. If everybody loves it, even better. But like everybody has the right to tell their story. And
and that's what's the great thing. That's what's the great thing about horror. I mean, I want to talk about a future episode with me, you, and Gary. And I know I asked Joshua Kimball whenever he has time to get on here too. But it'll just be great to talk about like different type of monsters. Like one episode, talk nothing about werewolves and talk nothing about vampires. Especially like how in like the 90s you had a lot of monster movies that had to deal with bugs.
Yep.
You know, like I can't remember. Oh man, I wish I remember the movie. It was in the 90s, and you had like these giant roaches that were
The Nest. I was thinking about
the Nest.
That was the one with Robert Scott.
Basically, they're genetic enhanced, but they were supposed to die out, but they didn't, and they became like the cockroaches became so big that they were able to basically put their faces together and form a face of a man, because that was their biggest threat.
It should have became a boot or a can of raid.
Right? But oh man, I wish I remember it.
Was it Mimic? Was that it?
Mimic, yes. Mimic.
Yeah, I remember that one.
Yeah.
That was one of the few that fell through the cracks. Yeah.
Yeah, but it was a great movie, you know, because like I said, in the beginning of the movie, they had this cockroach outbreak, and it was like killing people. Like literally, kids were getting sick from the bugs that the cockroaches had. So they literally got together and made a new species to eat all the bugs. But in the process, they're like, okay, well, these creative bugs, they're going to die within a matter of weeks. But instead, they basically manifest and were able to, you know, become a giant creature that was able to mimic the form of a man.
Nasty cockroaches. I can't stand.
It would be great to get.
Josh
on the show.
Josh is a cool dude. He's fun to talk to.
For sure.
I'm really enjoying like the two story stuff too, because it hits on a lot of the same stuff differently.
And you know what? Go look for Joshua Kimbo. Two stories, amazing work. You know, he's a story.
So talented.
It's a story about himself, about like how he grew up with depression and mental illness, and then found religion. And yeah, the guy's awesome. You know.
Yeah. There's so many awesome storytellers like in our field, man. Like you can't really limit yourself, and you can't like
not just in our field, but it's great how accepting and how friendly and open they are. Like instead of like, oh, I don't want to know you. You're a new guy. You know, I've been doing this for a while. No, they're open and really accepting, and you know, it's just awesome talking to them because they treat you like, you know, you're just a normal guy, just like they are. It's great.
Yeah, it counts for a lot. Like it's just a really cool thing. Yeah, on Amazon, like it's very deserving. And also, I wanted to say congratulations to Gary for getting his book in a store, because
that is awesome.
Does belong. You know what? I always want to say, hey, look, we don't want to talk about Gary too much because blah blah blah. But y'all didn't write Dinosaurs versus Mars Bots.
Yeah.
And if you've seen it, then you wouldn't wonder why we talk about it so much. It's it's a book, y'all.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean,
so
if this was Saturday Night Live, Gary's like our number one guest host.
yeah, Gary
You know,
Gary is
he deserves a golden jacket at this point.
yeah, Gary's like Tom Hanks on Saturday Night Live in like the 90s and early 2000s, but without the secret controversies that come with Tom Hanks sometimes. Yes,
Right.
Alec Baldwin, that's perfect. That's you.
Yeah.
Alec, you become Alec, you've gone from Don Rickles to Alec Baldwin. That's quite the leap. Like you become the Shadow. That's pretty cool, man.
Oh, that was a great movie. At least I thought it was.
Underrated movie. I thought that was really good. You know, also I like Darkman. Nobody really ever talks about Darkman.
Darkman was
I thought
awesome.
it was so awesome. I thought that was so cool.
Mm-hmm.
Like the way that they got his face melting, like when his time would run out.
Yeah.
Good stuff, man. Well,
all right.
What you finna get into, Ronnie? Because
all right,
I'm ready to get out of here.
It's almost an hour. We were just planning to come on here, and yeah, it is hilarious and cool, especially the finger part. Rah! Yeah. But yeah, it's awesome. Me and Jason were just planning to talk for a little bit, but just talking about my project, and then you guys coming in here as awesome and as always asking questions really helped the episode to go a little bit longer. But like I said, this just making sure I check my email to make sure that my editor has any of the questions before I head on to making the banner and ads and everything, and making sure all my grammar is correct, and pretty much just focus on getting that stuff ready, because like I said, this weekend or early Monday, it is going to come out. So look out for that.
Yo, make some noise for Ronnie. Make some noise for creators in general, because it's awesome, guys. Like, I've said it 1,000 times on this call, but like, it's not easy every single day, but it's worth it. It's worth it every day. And so if you stick with it, like, you'll tell, if you think you have a good story, you take your time and you nurse it, you're going to get, it is as good as you think it is. So, and there is no time limit. You are not required to exist for X amount of years before you can tell a good story. Because I've done this for 2 years, and I can tell as good a story as anybody. So don't stop because you don't think that you're ready. That's only you. Because if you just release your story and it's good, nobody's gonna ask how long you did it, or how they might ask how much other stuff you have, but that's only gonna add to your legend. Because
and not everyone's gonna like everything. There's people out there that won't like horror, and there's people that won't like this and that. Don't pay attention to the negativity. Pay attention.
And there's some people who are gonna say that they don't like it just to say that they don't like it. Yeah, ignore them people too. So just do you, because if you have a story to tell, it's a story worth telling.
All right.
That's all I got to say about that.
See y'all next week.
Flipping this table over. No, I'm joking. I'm good.
Peace.
All right. Be good, y'all. Take care. Good night.